nuns for a month while I gave vaccinations and that kind of thing. Wonderful people, fabulous time.
Yeah, it's nice. I spent my aunt lived there for like 5 years, and I went to spend with her like 4 months in Bogota, and then we went to Cali and Barranquilla, but mostly in Bogota. And it's beautiful.
Go ahead.
Montessori decided that she would develop the mathematics by putting it into 4 different groupings. First groupings for the 3-year-old child starts with the numbers 1 to 10. And if you think about a 3-year-old coming into a situation with numbers, you're not going to give them the symbol first, which is the actual picture of the number. You're going to give them the quantity. And she realized that if you gave the child 1 and said, this is 1, you gave them another 1 and said 2, the child still thinks that this is 1, another 1. So she decided to have the quantity fixed on the first introduction. So these red and blue rods are their first introduction, and they're first given without the numbers, just the rods, and they work with these. And so they see them, they see that the 1 is single, the 2 has 1, 2, and is longer. The 10, of course, is the longest. And so they learn just to count. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So they're counting just to 10 before they ever see the symbol. Then after they learn that, and they've counted to 10, and they know the difference, they can keep counting any one at random, you take them to the table and you teach them the symbol that goes with that sound of 1, or 2, or 3. And it's sandpaper so that they learn to write it, and they trace it with their fingers. And when they're older, they'll trace and write. But right now, we just feel that it's different. And we teach everything in the Montessori classroom with a 3-period lesson. And this is very important for parents to understand, that the first period in a 3-period lesson for anything for a child is to introduce it by saying what it is. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. Can you say 1? Can you say 2? Can you say 3? Trace 1, trace 2, trace 3. The second period is lots of games where you're saying the name of it over and over again. Give me the 2, give me the 3, put the 1 over here, count to 2, count to 3. All the games where you're saying the name. And that's with any of the materials. When I say a 3-period lesson, we do the same thing. First period is introduction, second period lots of games where you're saying the name. The third period you don't go to until you're absolutely sure that the child knows the name, because they have to come up with that out of their memory and say it. So we discourage parents from saying, what is that, for the very first thing? Because you say, oh, it's a 2, or oh, it's a 3, or you wrote your name, or you wrote the word cat. And if they come up with it, then that's good. But otherwise they become discouraged and defeated, and they don't want to do it again. So the third period, when you're absolutely sure, you say, what is this? And you say 1, 2, 3. So you work through all the numbers that way. 3 numbers at a time, 3-period lesson. Then they go back to the red rods, and now they can put the numbers that are mixed up with the right rod, because they know the 2. And that's a big expansion for them. And then they also can work with simple addition. And you say, what makes 10? 9, and how many more make 10? Let's see, 9 and 1 more make 10. So they're learning that. And you do the same thing, 8 and 2 more, 7 and 3 more. And then take away. So those are fun games for them. They're still not writing, they're just doing it. It's just setting into their mind, and they're working with the material. From there, the fixed quantity and the random numbers, Montessori had them go to spindle boxes. And now we have the fixed number and the random quantity. And also the introduction of 0. which gets nothing. So 1 feels a lot different than 6 in their little hand. And because there's only 45 in there, it works out that there better be 9 in that last one, or they messed up somewhere and they have to figure it out. So the teacher doesn't have to come over and say you did it right or wrong. The child figures them out. And that control of error in the material is what Montessori wanted, for the child to feel themselves that they had done well. After that, we go to the counters and numbers. And here we have random quantity and random numbers. So now they have to put them in the right order, and they have to put the quantities in the right way. And our presentation shows them how to place the discs so that they're also learning odd and even. So the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 have the extra one in the middle there. And so to even bring it up to them further, so let's separate them. We'll call the ones on the top even, and all the ones down here are odd. And they do this many times, and it sets. Then, for the final game that they play, you get a group of children together, and they know their numbers 1 to 10. And you have a basket that's in another part of the room. You have them sit in a circle, and each one gets a little slip of paper. And they go get that number. And then they come back, and you check and see if they brought you that number. Well, 0's in here, too. And sometimes the poor child that gets 0 feels like they've been somehow cheated, right? So, you watch the expression on their face, and you know who got 0. And they're either very dignified, and they hold their own and keep back from going and getting some blocks anyway, or they are resigned, and they sit there, and so you have to make them feel better. So that they feel good. But they love this game. They play this a lot. So that's the first group of the numbers 1 to 10. And it may only take a few months for the child. Some children, they may stay with this for half a year or a year. All right, the next thing that Montessori did was she said you can either, now that they can count to 10, they can go to the decimal system because it's just counting to 9 in each place value and do the operations, or you can go into linear counting. So it doesn't matter. You can do simultaneously, they can be working on both. But for the separation, we'll go to the decimal system first, and then we'll come over here. So again, the introduction is done with material and then the symbol. The decimal system starts with 1 unit. And then 10 units together is a 10 bar, and you count it out. 10 bars is 100 square. And 100 squares is 1,000 cube, which feels much heavier, much bigger than a unit. And they think they're doing some big work here. And if you notice, this is the point, the line, the plane square, and the three-dimensional cube. So they're learning geometry at the same time. After you do a 3-period lesson, this one is the only one where you use all 4 of them to do a 3-period lesson instead of just 3 things. Then they'll go to the symbol. And you notice that units are green, tens are blue, hundreds are red, thousands are green again because it's units again, of thousands. You know how we separate with a comma between the thousands. And putting them together, then they can work with the numbers as the place value. So they play lots of games with these, the colors, how many zeros in 100, how many zeros in 1,000, what color is 100, what color is 1,000, what color are tens, until they get it. Then you can take them down and they can count in materials up to 9 in each place value. So 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, 6 units, 7 units, 8 units, 9 units. What comes after 9 units? 10 units, but that's a 10 bar. So now we count 1 10, 2 10s, 3 10s, not 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That's for over there. They can learn the difference. Now we're just still counting up to 9 or 10. So after 9 tens is 10 tens. That's 100 square. Let's count 100, 200, up to 900s. What's after 900s? 1000s. And what's that? 1,000 cubed. After they've set this up many times and they've counted it out with you and you know they've got it, then you can bring the symbols out for each one. Still, all the units, then 1 10, 2 tens, 3 tens, all the hundreds up to 1,000. And so this is about 4 years of age, 4.5. They start building the big display. And the difference is now 9,000 is introduced, all the thousands. And 9,000s is 9 cubes, and not just 9 sitting there. There's 45 of them. So they love setting this up, and the visual image is great, from 1 unit to 9,000. And after they've been able to do this, we have them start fetching, we call it, which gives them a tray, and they're going to start going to get the quantity from the symbol that we send them with. So they're going to go get 4 units to start. They come back, you play that one, send them back. Maybe this time they're going to get 5 tens and 4 units. So they come back, they're getting that right, so you're going to send them with, to get 700s, 5 tens and 4 units. And they actually have to go and get the right quantities. 5 of these, 7 of these, 5 of the tens, and 4 of the units from the big display. And then finally, 1,000. At that point, you say, okay, what did you bring me? You do what's called a magic slide, and they see the number, and you read the number, 2,700, 5 tens, and 4 units. And if they can write, then you have to write it down. But they're getting used to place value. Once they can do that, excuse me, you can do simple addition with no carrying, where 2 of them, one gets this number, one gets this number, they come back, you put it together, they count the beads, and they have the answer. And simple subtraction, when you start out with a big number, you take away, one child brings a big number, and you say to the other child, now you're going to take away this much from his amount. And so you start with units. He's got 8 units, can he have 7? This other fellow has 7. He's got 9 tens, can he have 3 of them? He's got 7 of the hundreds, can you have 5 of them? And so they're giving up, and they come up with a much smaller amount. So it's very simple for them. From there, we take all this, we put it on the shelf, and it becomes the bank. And they don't need to set up the big display anymore. Now they're big enough to have the bank game. And they go to the bank when they need anything. But yet we have to teach them carrying. So there's this beautiful exercise where you throw all the golden beads out and you say, we're going to play a game where we're only going to go to 10. We don't count any further than that. And they love this. And so you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What can we do to change this into something else? When we have 10, what do? We go and get a 10 bar. So they go to the bank and they get a 10 bar. And they bring it back and they leave the other 10 at the bank. I'm just leaving it there for now. And they do this all the way through until they've gotten as far as they can go in 10. And then you take all the 10s that you've got, and what do? We're counting to 10, and we're going to take it, and what are we going to get? 100 square. And you wait for them to come up with it. Because that's the beauty of it. They love that. So they get the 100 square, and then with the 100 squares, you do the same thing, and you get 10 100 squares makes 1,000 cubed. So they know carrying. Then the bank game starts, and they each have their own set of numbers. You send them off. Now you can send them off with all different amounts because they can carry. And they bring it back to you, each tray. And you put it all together, shake it up, this is addition. And you show the numbers, your number and your number and your number make this much bigger number, and we get the big number from the big display and we show it.